Shalom. The Holy One, blessed be He, welcome to the Voice of Torah, presented by Beit Yisrael International. Today we journey into Lech Lecha, the call to covenant and divine purpose, with our host agents Abraham and Sarah. Together they'll explore the unfolding path of Avraham's faith, his covenant with God, and the transformative journey that defines the soul's purpose. Guided by the profound insights of Gaddi Efrayim, we'll uncover personal revelation and Abraham's emunah, faith, in the Creator of heaven and earth.
All right, welcome everyone. Ready to dive deep into some Torah with us?
Always.
Awesome. Today we're going to be looking at Parshat Lech Lecha.
Oh, great one.
Yeah, it's all about Abraham's journey and what it can teach us about faith and finding our place in the world.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking, we're going to be drawing our insights from the Lech Lecha by Beit Yisrael International.
Okay.
It's a collection of commentaries by some really bright Jewish sages.
It's incredible, how much depth there is in these commentaries, especially for someone who's maybe just starting to learn about Torah. It can really unpack so many layers of meaning.
I think that's really true.
Yeah.
So Lech Lecha, it literally means go forth.
Right.
And it's God's command to Abraham to leave everything he knows behind and journey to a new land. And I mean, just imagine like leaving your family, your home, your comfort zone, everything that feels safe and familiar and heading into the unknown. I mean, what does that even say about the nature of faith and trust?
It really challenges our ideas about what it means to rely on something bigger than ourselves, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I mean, Rishi, he was a famous commentator from the Middle Ages. He saw this journey as a test, designed to elevate Abraham spiritually, like pushing yourself outside your comfort zone to discover what you're truly capable of.
I like that it's like a spiritual boot camp of sorts.
Totally.
But it wasn't just about testing his limits, though, right?
Right.
I mean, there are other interpretations of this go forth command.
Absolutely. Yeah, Ramban, another sage, focuses on the immense trust that Abraham had to have in God.
Okay.
Like, think about it. Leaving everything behind, not knowing where you're going, what you're going to face, that takes a profound leap of faith. It's like saying, I surrender to something bigger than myself, even if I don't fully understand it.
Yeah, it's a level of surrender that's pretty hard to grasp sometimes. It makes you wonder if, like, we're ever truly called to that kind of radical trust.
I think we are, in different ways.
Oh.
Maybe not, leaving our physical homes.
Right.
But letting go of old ideas, limiting beliefs, maybe relationships that no longer serve us.
Yeah.
It's about making space for something new, even if it feels scary.
That's a really interesting way to connect it to our own experience.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not always about a physical journey.
Right.
It can be an internal one, too.
Exactly.
Like that.
And then there's Cleocar, a 16th century mystic, and he had a different take on it.
Yeah?
He saw Lech Lecha as a journey of self-discovery.
Okay.
So it wasn't just about trusting God, it was about Abraham trusting himself to find his own unique path and fulfill his purpose.
So it's like this journey was about so much more than just packing up and moving.
Totally.
It was about spiritual growth, radical trust, and discovering his true self, all wrapped up in one epic adventure.
Yeah. And that adventure is filled with all sorts of challenges, right?
Yes.
Which Jewish tradition calls the 10 trials of Abraham. These weren't just, everyday bumps in the road. They were moments that pushed him to his very limits and revealed something profound about his character and faith.
We hear about these trials all the time, but like, what were they really about?
Yeah.
Were they punishments?
Yeah.
Tests?
Yeah.
Something else entirely?
The sages, they viewed them as steps in Abraham's spiritual ascent.
Okay.
Each trial, no matter how difficult, refined his faith and brought him closer to God.
Okay, so let's dive into a few of these trials.
Yeah, let's do it.
One that always stands out to me is his encounter with King Nimrod.
Oh, yeah.
Who threw Abraham into a fiery furnace for refusing to worship idols.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about standing up for your beliefs.
Right. It's a powerful example of his commitment to monotheism.
Okay.
His belief in one God, even in the face of incredible danger. It was a defining moment that set him apart from the prevailing beliefs of his time.
Yeah, he basically drew a line in the sand and said, this is what I stand for, even if it costs me everything.
Right.
It's a level of conviction that's inspiring even today.
Yeah, totally.
But it didn't stop there, did it?
It didn't.
I mean, didn't he also face a devastating famine?
He did, yeah.
In Canaan?
Yeah, so God had promised him the land of Canaan, but then a famine struck,
Right.
forcing him to journey to Egypt to survive.
Okay.
It's almost like a test of his faith, you know? Will he doubt God's promise in the face of hardship?
It makes you think.
It does.
And it seems like even in Egypt, things didn't exactly go smoothly, right?
Not quite.
What happened with Pharaoh?
Well, Pharaoh took Sarah, Abraham's wife, into his palace.
Oh, wow.
And this created another major trial.
Okay.
You know, it symbolizes a threat to holiness,
Okay.
raises questions about protecting what is sacred, even in hostile environments. It's a reminder that even when you're following your path, you know, there will be obstacles and challenges to your faith and values.
And it's not just about overcoming external challenges, right?
Yeah.
It's about the internal struggles too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that leads us to perhaps the most difficult trial to understand.
Okay.
The binding of Isaac.
This one is tough to wrap your head around.
It is.
God commands Abraham to sacrifice his son.
Right.
Which seems impossible to reconcile with the idea of a loving God.
It's a story that has challenged and perplexed people for centuries.
That's right.
Yeah. But, you know, the sages often interpret it as the ultimate test of Abraham's submission to the divine will.
Okay, so it's not about the literal act of sacrifice,
Right.
but about the willingness to surrender to something beyond our understanding, even when it seems to go against our deepest instincts.
Yes. It's about aligning our will with a higher purpose, even when it's painful or confusing. You know, it pushes us to ask, like, where do we draw the line between faith and blind obedience?
Yeah.
How do we grapple with those moments when our personal desires clash with what we believe is right?
Those are some deep questions.
They are.
And it's hard to imagine what it must have been like for Abraham to go through that.
Absolutely.
But these trials weren't just about testing him, were they?
Right.
I mean, they were also shaping him,
Yes.
refining him into the person he was meant to become.
Right. And one of the most fascinating aspects of this transformation is the change in Abraham and Sarah's names.
Okay, yeah.
They each have the letter He added to their names, and that's not just the random detail.
Okay, I've always wondered about that. What's the significance of the He?
Well, in Jewish mystical tradition, the He is a very powerful symbol.
Okay.
It represents divine presence, transformation, and even the breath of life.
Wow, so their names are like being infused with this divine energy.
Mm.
It's like they're being elevated, becoming more connected to the divine through this journey.
Exactly, yeah. The Talmud, which is a central text of Jewish law, links the He to the 5 books of Moses.
Oh, okay.
The Torah itself.
Okay.
So their names becoming infused with He is like them embodying the Torah, you know?
Yeah.
the divine wisdom and teachings.
That's pretty incredible. It's like their very beings are becoming vessels for something sacred and profound.
Yeah, and the Zohar, a key work of Jewish mysticism, takes it even further,
Okay.
suggesting that the entire creation was formed with the He.
Wow.
So this letter represents the very essence of existence, the blueprint of creation itself.
Okay, so adding the He to their names, it signifies a profound spiritual transformation.
Yeah.
It's like they are being woven into the very fabric of creation.
Exactly.
That's powerful.
Yeah, and it shows the power of faith and obedience, you know, through their journey, their trials, their unwavering trust.
Yeah.
They become something more than they were before.
Yeah. It makes you wonder, like, what transformations we undergo in our own lives, right?
Yeah, that's a great question.
How do we experience those moments of profound change?
Yeah.
You know, those shifts in perspective that shape who we are.
It's a great question to consider.
Yeah.
And it leads us to the broader lessons that Abraham's journey offers, even for those
Right.
who might feel like they're on their own journeys of exile, searching for meaning and purpose.
Because even though this story happened thousands of years ago,
Right.
it speaks to something universal within us.
Yeah.
That longing for connection.
Yeah.
That search for meaning. That desire to overcome challenges and find our place in the world.
Totally.
So let's dive deeper into that connection and see what lessons Abraham's story holds for us today.
Sounds good. So picking up on that idea of connection, Let's delve a little deeper into those 10 trials of Abraham.
Okay.
Remember, each one was like a stepping stone in his spiritual development, and they offer some powerful insights for us even today.
Totally. We talked about the fiery furnace with Nimrod and the famine in Canaan, which really tested his faith.
Right.
And then there was the whole situation with Pharaoh taking Sarah.
Right.
Which brings up all these questions about protecting what's sacred.
Yeah.
But there were so many other trials, too.
There were.
Right.
Yes. Another significant one was the war against the 4 kings.
Oh, right.
Abraham leads this small band of men to rescue his nephew, Lot,
Okay.
who had been captured.
Right.
It shows his courage and willingness to fight for what's right, even when the odds are stacked against him.
Yeah. It's a reminder that sometimes we have to step up and fight for what we believe in.
Totally.
Even if it means going against, really powerful forces.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the sages see divine intervention in this victory.
Okay.
It wasn't just Abraham's military skills, it was his trust in a higher power working through him.
That's a powerful image, that we can become instruments of something greater.
Yeah.
When we align ourselves with a higher purpose, it's like our actions become infused with a different kind of strength.
Yeah, totally.
That's really cool.
And then we have the covenant between the parts, the Brit Bein Habeturim, where God reveals to Abraham that his descendants will face exile and suffering before inheriting the land.
Wait, can you explain that a bit more?
Yeah.
What exactly is a covenant?
Yeah, so a covenant is a sacred agreement,
Okay.
a promise between God and humanity.
Okay.
In this case, God promises Abraham that his descendants will inherit the land of Canaan, but it won't be easy. They'll face trials and tribulations along the way.
So it's a promise with a catch.
Yeah, you could say that.
I mean, it must have been tough for Abraham to hear that his future generations would face hardship.
It definitely tested his faith. Imagine being told that your children and grandchildren will endure suffering.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that even with divine promises, life can be full of challenges. It asks us to hold on to hope even when faced with some difficult realities.
It makes you think about the challenges we face today, both individually and collectively.
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels like we're going through our own periods of exile, whether it's political turmoil, social injustice, or even personal struggles.
Right.
But maybe, like Abraham, we can find strength in knowing that even in those difficult times, there's a promise of something better on the horizon.
Absolutely. And that promise requires us to keep going, to keep striving for a more just and compassionate world.
Okay, so we have the war against the kings, the covenant, and we already touched on the binding of Isaac.
Right.
What were some of the other trials Abraham faced?
Well, at the age of 99, Abraham is commanded to undergo circumcision,
Okay.
both for himself and his entire household.
Oh, 99. That's quite a commitment.
Yeah, and it wasn't just a physical act. It had deep spiritual significance.
Yeah.
It symbolized the covenant between Abraham and God. A tangible sign of their unique relationship and his commitment to upholding God's laws.
So it was a way of outwardly expressing his inner commitment.
Yes, exactly.
Oh.
The sages also see it as a form of purification, a way of removing spiritual obstacles and aligning oneself more fully with the divine.
I see.
It's a reminder that spiritual growth often involves taking concrete actions, making physical changes that reflect our inner transformation.
And circumcision is still practiced today in many cultures, including Judaism, right?
It's a powerful ritual that connects generations and carries profound spiritual meaning.
Okay, so we've covered several trials now.
Right.
What else was on Abraham's list?
Remember how Sarah was taken by Pharaoh earlier?
Right.
Well, it happens again.
Oh, no.
This time with King Abimelech.
So it's like a recurring challenge, this threat to the sanctity of his marriage.
Exactly. The sages view this repetition as an opportunity for Abraham to further refine his faith, to demonstrate his unwavering trust in God, even when facing a familiar obstacle.
Yeah, it's like each time he overcomes a challenge, he emerges even stronger.
It's like building spiritual muscles.
Yeah.
Each trial makes him more resilient and strengthens his connection to his purpose.
That's a good way to put it.
And then we have a particularly heart-wrenching trial.
Okay.
The exile of Hagar and Ishmael.
Right.
Abraham is commanded to send away his son, Ishmael,
Yeah.
and his mother, Hagar, at Sarah's request.
Wow, that must have been incredibly difficult.
Right.
To send away his own son, even if it was divine command.
Right.
It makes you question the nature of sacrifice and what it means to follow a higher calling.
It does, yeah. It's a reminder that sometimes faith requires us to make incredibly difficult choices.
Right.
Choices that might go against our human desires and attachments.
Right.
But, the sages emphasize that this trial highlights the importance of choosing the path of holiness.
Right.
Even when it conflicts with our natural inclinations.
It's a reminder that even in the midst of pain and confusion, there's a higher purpose at play.
Yeah.
It's about trusting that there's a bigger picture.
Yeah.
Even if we can't see it at the time.
Right. And it's important to remember that this story isn't just about Abraham's personal struggles.
Okay.
It's also about the legacy he leaves behind.
Yeah.
The impact his choices have on future generations.
That's a great point.
Oh, yeah.
So we've talked about 8 trials so far.
Okay.
Defying Nimrod, the famine, the 2 abductions of Sarah,
Right.
the war against the kings,
Yeah.
the covenant revealing future exile, circumcision, and the exile of Hagar and Ishmael.
Right.
And of course, the binding of Isaac.
Yeah.
What are the last 2 trials that complete this epic list?
Well, the 9th trial is often associated with a less dramatic event.
Okay.
But it's significant nonetheless.
Okay.
It's the challenge of finding a suitable wife for his son, Isaac.
Okay, so maybe not as intense as facing down a king or a famine. But I can see how finding the right partner, ensuring the continuation of his lineage, would be a huge responsibility.
It was about preserving the purity of his family line.
Okay.
Ensuring that Isaac married someone who would uphold the values and traditions he had established.
Right.
It was about securing the future of his spiritual legacy.
So even in this seemingly less dramatic trial,
Yeah.
we see the themes of faith, continuity, and legacy playing out.
Exactly.
It's amazing how each of these 10 trials, in its own way,
Yeah.
contributes to Abraham's spiritual development and ultimately shapes the destiny of his descendants.
And as we reflect on these trials, it's important to remember that they offer valuable lessons for each of us as we navigate our own journeys.
I completely agree, because who hasn't faced challenges, setbacks, moments of doubt,
Right.
even feelings of exile in their own lives?
Exactly. Abraham's story reminds us that faith isn't about avoiding trials, but about finding strength and meaning within them. And that leads us to the 10th and final trial.
So what is it? The 10th trial, this final one.
Well, the 10th trial, as described by the sages, it's about Abraham's burial place.
Okay.
And this might seem kind of anticlimactic after facing fiery furnaces and kings and all that.
Yeah.
But think about it. Even in death, Abraham is being tested.
Okay.
He has to acquire a burial place for Sarah in Canaan,
Okay.
a land where he still feels like a stranger.
Yeah, it's like even in death, he's called to affirm his connection to this promised land, to solidify his legacy.
Yeah.
He's still going forth, even in this final act.
Exactly. And it's through purchasing the cave of Machpelah,
Okay.
securing a physical place for his family's remains, that Abraham truly plants his roots in this land that has been promised to him and his descendants.
It's a powerful combination of all the trials he's faced.
Yeah.
A final act of faith and commitment.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Wow. I never thought of it that way. It's like all those trials, all that hardship, it all leads to this moment where he finally establishes a permanent presence in the land of Canaan.
Yeah.
It's a powerful reminder that even our final acts
Yeah.
can be expressions of our faith and our legacy.
It is, and it connects beautifully to those themes of exile and belonging that we were discussing earlier.
Right.
Abraham's journey shows us that even when we feel like outsiders, even when we're facing challenges and setbacks, we can still find a place to call home, both physically and spiritually.
And that search for belonging, that yearning for a place to plant our roots, it's something so many people can relate to, even today.
Absolutely. Whether we're immigrants searching for a new home, individuals trying to find our place in society, or simply seeking a sense of inner peace and belonging.
Right.
Abraham's story offers this powerful message of hope and resilience.
It's like he's showing us that it's possible to build a life,
Yeah.
a legacy, even in unfamiliar territory.
Totally.
And that even in the face of death, there's a sense of continuity,
Yeah.
a connection to something bigger than ourselves.
Exactly. And that brings us to the heart of what makes Abraham's story so enduringly relevant.
Okay.
It's not just about the historical events, but about those universal themes that resonate with us across time and cultures.
So what are some of those key takeaways that we can apply to our own lives?
Yeah.
Even if we're not being called to leave our homelands or face down kings?
Well, I think one of the biggest lessons is the transformative power of faith.
Okay.
You know, Abraham faced incredible challenges, moments of doubt and despair, but he never lost his trust in a higher power, even when he didn't understand the plan.
And that trust, that faith, it wasn't passive, was it?
No.
It propelled him forward, gave him the courage to keep going, even when things were tough.
Exactly. It wasn't just about believing. It was about acting on that belief. Yeah.
Even when it was difficult or scary.
And that's something we can all strive for in our own lives, right? To find that inner strength, that resilience that allows us to keep going even when we face setbacks or uncertainty.
Absolutely. It's about finding that anchor within ourselves, that connection to something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
That gives us the courage to face our own personal trials and emerge stronger on the other side.
And it's not just about inner strength, is it?
Right.
I mean, Abraham's story also highlights the importance of community.
Yeah.
Of connection, of supporting each other through difficult times.
That's a great point. Yeah. Think about how he gathered a community around him, how he fought for his nephew, how he built a family and a legacy that extended far beyond his own lifetime.
Right.
It's a reminder that we're not meant to go through these journeys alone.
Yeah, we need each other.
Yeah.
We need those bonds of love, compassion, and shared purpose to help us navigate the challenges and celebrate the triumphs. Exactly. And as we wrap up this deep dive into the story of Abraham, I think that's one of the most beautiful and enduring messages we can take with us.
Okay.
That even in exile, even in the face of trials, even in the mystery of death, there's a promise of belonging.
Okay.
Of connection, of a legacy that extends far beyond our own individual lives.
It's a truly inspiring message.
Yeah.
And it's incredible how these ancient stories passed down through generations still hold so much wisdom and relevance for us today.
It is. It's a testament to the enduring power of these traditions and the profound impact they can have on our lives.
We've only scratched the surface of Abraham's incredible journey.
We have.
Can ancient Jewish mysticism actually shed light on, well, World War I?
Yeah, and maybe even a hint at what a last World War might look like.
We're working with some notes and writings, looks like from a Gaddi Efrayim.
Connecting world wars to the insights of Jewish sages.
It's a bit dense.
We'll unpack it together, though, step by step.
It really is amazing, though, how these ancient texts can still feel so relevant, right?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we're talking about a war that tore the world apart a century ago, and somehow these writings might hold a key to understanding it.
It's like, was World War I, just this horrible event?
Or was it maybe part of a larger plan, like something laid out in the Torah?
Sounds kind of crazy when you say it like that.
Yeah, but that's where this document starts, believe it or not. It points us right back to the book of Genesis.
Genesis, okay, I'm intrigued. What part?
The War of the Nine Kings. Genesis 14, you've got all these kings battling it out in ancient Mesopotamia.
Seems like just another power grab on the surface, right?
Yeah, you'd think so, just kings fighting over land. But the document digs deeper. It says Jewish sages see this as a blueprint.
A blueprint? For what?
For understanding empires. These 9 kings, they represent the rise and fall of empires throughout history. All those clashes, big and small. It's like this repeating pattern.
Hold on, so they're saying this ancient battle, it's like some kind of prophecy for future empires.
Many Jewish thinkers interpret it that way. And when you get into the details, it gets even wilder. Rashi, the big commentator on the Torah.
Of course, yeah.
Well, he saw those 4 kings, the ones who went to war against the 5 kings, as foreshadowing specific empires: Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome.
Wow. So Rashi's connecting these ancient kings to empires that would rise thousands of years later.
Exactly. Empires that, by the way, would end up clashing with the Jewish people too.
Okay, so I'm starting to see the connections here, but how does all this relate to World War I? It's not like they were fighting over the same land, right?
And that's where it gets really interesting. This document is suggesting that all these wars across millennia, they're not just about land or power grabs.
Oh, so there's something deeper going on.
Much deeper. They reflect a spiritual struggle playing out on the world stage.
So we're not talking about physical territory, but some kind of spiritual battleground.
You got it. Think about it. Each empire, each conflict, it represents different values, different ways of seeing the world, and the clash between them, it's like those ideologies battling it out. It's this struggle that shapes history.
Okay, I'm trying to wrap my head around this. So World War I, with all its chaos and destruction, that could be seen as part of this larger spiritual conflict.
That's what this document is getting at, and it takes it even further with this idea of Shevle Mashiach, the birth pangs of the Messiah.
Wait, birth pangs? So are they saying these world wars with all the suffering are like labor pains?
Intense, painful, yeah, but leading to something new, to the Messianic era.
So these wars are part of a necessary process, a process of change, like giving birth to a new era. But what does that have to do with the Messiah?
Well, in Jewish mystical thought, the Messianic era isn't just about one person showing up. It's a fundamental shift in the world, a time of peace and spiritual awakening. And to get there, sometimes you got to go through the fire, so to speak.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about those 4 empires we talked about earlier? How do Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome fit into all this?
Remember how Rashi connected those 4 kings to those empires?
Yeah, and those empires all clash with the Jewish people, too.
Right. Well, the Kabbalists, the Jewish mystics, they took that idea and ran with it. They saw those 4 empires as representing the major forces that have opposed, that have oppressed the Jewish people throughout history.
So they're the bad guys in this cosmic drama.
Not necessarily bad guys per se, but forces that represent a certain kind of spiritual darkness, like an opposition to the light the Jewish people are meant to bring to the world.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about this last world war? Where does that fit in? And how does Abraham, this righteous figure from Genesis, connect to any of this?
That's where things get really apocalyptic. We're talking about the war of Gog and Magog, the ultimate battle between good and evil.
Whoa, wait a minute, Gog and Magog. That sounds intense. Can you give me some context? Who are they?
They're figures that symbolize, well, the ultimate enemy, the embodiment of chaos and destruction. In Jewish eschatology, that's a fancy way of saying end times teachings, Gog and Magog represent the forces that will rise up against goodness and try to destroy everything.
So this final battle, it's not just about armies clashing, it's about something much bigger, a cosmic showdown between good and evil. But where does Abraham fit into all of this?
That's where it gets really interesting. You've got Abraham, this figure of pure righteousness, defeating the 4 kings in Genesis.
Right.
Kabbalists like Rabbi Moshe Cordovero saw that as a premonition of the final victory of good over evil in the war of Gog and Magog.
Okay, I think I see where this is going. So just as Abraham defeated those 4 kings, the forces of good will ultimately triumph in this final apocalyptic showdown. It's like good versus evil, but on a cosmic scale.
Exactly. And it's not just about physical victory. It's about spiritual light overcoming material darkness. This age-old battle, it continues to play out even in our modern world.
This is definitely giving me a whole new way of looking at things. But what about the human side of all this? These are massive cosmic forces. But what about individuals, the souls, going through these times?
Great question. And that's where the Chassidic perspective comes in. We're going to dive into the teachings of Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the author of the Tanya.
Oh, I've heard of the Tanya.
And Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, too. They had some profound things to say about how suffering and war relate to the individual soul, and how even amidst all that, we can find meaning and even a path to growth.
This is so fascinating. I think we need to take a quick break here. When we come back, we'll explore how these Chassidic masters viewed war and suffering, and how they saw it as a path to spiritual growth. Stay tuned. Okay, we're back, and I'm still thinking about all this. Epic battles, cosmic forces, good versus evil, it's a lot. But how did those Chassidic masters we talked about before, how did they make sense of all this war and suffering on a personal level?
That's where things get even more, introspective. The Chassidic masters, like Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, who wrote the Tanya,
right,
and Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, they didn't shy away from, the hard stuff. They saw suffering, both personal and global, as just part of life, part of the human experience.
So it wasn't just about saying, everything happens for a reason.
No, not at all. They really dove deep into, the human condition, into the struggles of the soul, and they saw those external conflicts, the wars, alongside internal struggles, like battling our own negative tendencies, as all essential for growth, spiritual growth, that is.
So even with all that chaos and darkness, they saw a path towards, greater awareness. Like even war, as terrible as it is, could push us to grow.
That's a really insightful way to put it. It's not about glorifying suffering or ignoring the pain, but recognizing that, it has the potential to refine us, to help us grow.
So how does that actually work? How does suffering lead to spiritual growth?
Okay, imagine this. When we face challenges, right, whether it's a personal crisis or, well, a world war. It makes us confront our limits, our fears even. It shakes things up and forces us to, dig deeper, to search for meaning.
So those difficult experiences, they kind of crack us open. And in those cracks, something new can emerge.
Exactly. It's those times of vulnerability, of feeling broken, that we can connect with something beyond ourselves. And we start to see the world and our place in it in a whole new light.
This makes me think about how we often try to avoid suffering. We try to numb the pain. But maybe there's something to be gained by leaning into it, by actually facing it.
That's what the Hasidic masters would say. True growth comes when we stop running from discomfort and instead, use it as fuel. Not seeking out suffering, of course, but seeing it as a way to wake up. Spiritually, it's about finding meaning even when things are chaotic.
Okay, I'm starting to see how these ideas could be really empowering. It's not about pretending the pain isn't there. It's about finding what's possible within it, using those experiences to become stronger, more resilient, more compassionate even, more connected to something bigger than ourselves.
That's the heart of Hasidic thought. Finding the light within the darkness, hope within the struggle.
This whole conversation is making me see things differently. It's like we've been given a new lens to look at history and maybe even current events through. So let's talk about that. If these ancient texts offer this glimpse into a bigger plan, a cosmic plan, what does that mean for how we understand history and even our place in it?
Well, it tells us that history isn't just random, that there's a purpose, a direction to things, even if we don't always see it.
So we're not just pawns in some cosmic game. There's meaning, even amidst the chaos.
That's the idea, and that's powerful, especially when times are tough, right? When we're dealing with personal struggles or, global ones.
It's almost like these teachings offer a sense of hope, even in the darkest of times. But it also brings up some tough questions. Like, if suffering is part of this divine plan, does that mean we're just supposed to accept it passively?
That's a really important point. And the Jewish mystical tradition, it doesn't just brush that aside. In fact, it emphasizes how important action is, striving to make the world a better place, even with all those bigger forces at play.
So not passive acceptance, but active participation in all this.
Exactly. We have a role to play, individually and collectively. We can choose to align ourselves with the forces of good to bring light into the world, even in small ways.
That's inspiring. It's like we're not just witnesses to history, but co-creators.
And that's where tikkun olam comes in, the idea of repairing the world. It's about taking responsibility, our actions working to heal the brokenness we see.
Okay, so it's not just about sitting back and letting things happen. We have a responsibility to act, to make things better. But how does that connect to this last World War idea? If we're working to repair the world, can we actually prevent it? That final conflict?
That's a question Jewish thinkers have wrestled with for a long time. Some believe that final war is inevitable, part of this cosmic play that has to unfold. Others believe we can, lessen its impact, maybe even prevent it altogether through our actions.
So there's hope. It's not all doom and gloom.
The Jewish mystical tradition, at its core, it's a message of hope. Even amidst all the challenges and uncertainty, it says even in the darkest times, there's always the possibility of transformation, of redemption, of bringing light into the world.
I love that. Humbling and empowering at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But I got to ask, how do we actually apply these teachings in our own lives? It's one thing to talk about cosmic plans, but how do we turn that into action? Where do we even begin? I mean, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, right? Like, can my little actions really make a difference when we're talking about something as huge as a world war?
I hear you. It's a lot to process. But think about it this way. We've been exploring how Jewish mysticism sees history, like this big spiritual struggle, right? A cosmic battle, light versus dark.
Yeah.
Well, each of us, we get to choose a side. We have that power.
Okay, so it's not just armies and countries fighting. It's about the choices we make every single day.
Exactly. Kindness over cruelty, standing up for what's right even when it's tough, offering help when someone's down. Those choices, they matter. They tip the scales towards the light.
Wow. So every good deed, it's like a mini victory in this cosmic battle.
That's the idea. And those little victories, they add up, they ripple out and can change the world. It's tikkun olam in action, repairing the world, not just some, far-off concept.
Yeah, right. It's about those actions, those everyday things that bring healing.
Exactly. So don't underestimate those small acts of kindness. They really do matter. They affect the people around us and contribute to a more loving, harmonious world.
It makes you realize, how often we get caught up in our own stuff, our own problems and worries. But this whole tikkun olam idea, it's a reminder that We're all connected, and our actions affect everything around us.
And that brings us to another key piece of this. Tikkun halev, repairing the heart.
Okay, so we've got repairing the world, and now we're talking about repairing the heart.
It's all connected. The Hasidic masters, they taught that real change starts inside. It's about growing those qualities, compassion, empathy, loving kindness, within ourselves. It's becoming more aware of, well, our thoughts, our feelings, our actions, and then making choices that match our best selves, you know?
So like inner peace activism, the more we work on ourselves, the more we can contribute to peace in the world.
I like that inner peace activism. It's true. When we cultivate that inner peace, it radiates outward. We become more patient, more understanding. We forgive more easily. And that has a ripple effect, you know? People feel it.
So it's not just changing the world out there, but changing ourselves from the inside out.
Exactly. The world's a mirror reflecting our inner state. So if we want more peace, more love, more compassion out there, we got to cultivate those things within ourselves.
I'm really digging this. It's not about waiting for someone else to fix things. It's about taking responsibility for our own growth and letting that ripple out and affect everything else. But inner work, that's tough. Where do we even start?
Start small. Think about where you feel called to make a difference. Being more patient with family, more present with friends, doing those random acts of kindness, you know? Just make it a practice. Be mindful of your thoughts and actions, and choose love over fear whenever you can.
Wow. This whole deep dive has been mind-blowing, exploring these ancient teachings, seeing how they shed light on, well, everything. From these cosmic battles to how we grow as people. It's a lot, but I feel like I have this whole new way of seeing the world.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you, and I hope it's made you curious to keep learning and growing. It's a lifelong journey, you know? And each step towards more awareness, more compassion, it brings us closer to a more beautiful world.
I'm going to said it better myself. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's given you all some things to ponder, maybe even inspired you to take action, no matter how small, to repair the world and to repair your own heart. Until next time, keep seeking, keep growing, keep shining your light.